You think you know what happened behind castle walls. The feasts, the politics, the occasional beheading in the courtyard. But there's a room you've never heard about. A chamber that existed in nearly every major European palace between 1200 and 1400, tucked away in the eastern wing, where servants were forbidden to enter after sunset. It had no windows. The door was always locked. And inside, the floor sloped toward a central drain that was scrubbed clean every morning before dawn. They called it the purification chamber, and what medieval kings did inside wasn't medicine. It wasn't ritual. It was something far more twisted, something the church publicly condemned but privately encouraged, something so disturbing that when historians finally found the architectural plans in a monastery basement in Bavaria in 1987, they tried to bury them again. Because what they discovered was evidence of a practice so grotesque, so systematic, so casually monstrous that it shattered everything we thought we knew about royal power and bodily autonomy. The drain in the center of those rooms wasn't for water. It was for blood. And not just any blood, the blood of children. Now, before you click away thinking this is sensationalized horror, understand something. Medieval Europe operated on a logic we can barely comprehend today. They believed the body was a battlefield between divine forces and demonic corruption. They believed sign accumulated in the bloodstream like poison. They believed that sickness, impotence, madness, even political failure were symptoms of spiritual rot that needed to be physically drained from the body. And they believed, truly believed, that the purest blood in the kingdom belonged to those who hadn't yet reached the age of reason. Children under 7 years old, orphans preferably, street children, the sons and daughters of criminals, anyone whose disappearance wouldn't raise questions. The practice started in France under King Philip, Augustus around 1210. He'd been suffering from what court physicians called melancholic vapors, violent mood swings that left him catatonic for days. His advisors were terrified. A weak king meant a vulnerable throne, and Philip had enemies circling like wolves. So his personal confessor, a man named Father Renard, who'd studied with Moorish physicians in Toledo, proposed a solution. If demonic influences entered through sin, they could be expelled through blood, but not the king's blood that was sacred, royal, touched by God himself. No, they needed innocent blood to absorb the corruption, to draw it out like a poultice draws poison from a wound. They brought in 6 children from a Paris orphanage. The records describe them as wards of the church, unbaptized, aged 4 to 6 years. They were told they were being taken to serve in the royal household, given sweet wine to drink, and led down into the chamber beneath the palace. What happened next was documented by Father Renard himself in a journal discovered in 2003 during restoration work on Notre Dame. He wrote, with the clinical detachment of a man conducting a scientific experiment. The children were laid on stone tables, their wrists and ankles bound with silk, not rope, because rope would bruise and bruising was believed to taint the essence. Their arms were extended over copper bowls, engraved with prayers in Latin. And then, using silver lancets blessed by the archbishop, their veins were opened. Not deep enough to kill quickly, just enough to let the blood flow slowly, steadily, while they were still conscious. Still aware, the king would sit in a chair nearby, breathing the air of the room, believing that as the children's blood drained, his sins would drain with it. Sometimes he would pray. Sometimes he would eat grapes and watch. The children were kept alive as long as possible, sometimes hours. Their blood collected and later mixed with holy water and poured into the palace gardens as an offering to God. When they finally stopped breathing, their bodies were wrapped in linen and buried in unmarked graves beneath the chapel. No records, no names, just transactions in a ledger marked spiritual expenditures. And here's the part that makes your skin crawl. It worked, not because of any mystical purification, but because Philip believed it worked. His mood stabilized. His confidence returned. Word spread quietly through the courts of Europe. By 1250, every major kingdom had its own version of the purification chamber. In England, they called it the remedy room. In Spain, the sala de limpieza. The architecture was almost identical. Stone chambers, sloped floors, central drains, always located in the east wing where the rising sun, symbol of rebirth, could bless the work being done. They even developed a schedule. Kings would undergo purification 4 times a year, aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. The church turned a blind eye because many of these children were considered unredeemed souls. Anyway, orphans who might grow up to be thieves or heretics. In the church's logic, their blood was being used for a holy purpose, saving a king ordained by God. What's a few nameless children compared to the stability of a Christian throne? Court physicians began writing treatises on the practice, debating the ideal age of the child, the time of day for maximum efficacy, whether boys or girls provided purer essence. One particularly chilling manuscript from 1287, found in a monastery in Austria, suggests that children who cried during the procedure were believed to produce corrupted blood and should be replaced immediately. The implication being that they went through multiple children in a single session until they found one who remained silent. Can you imagine that? A child so terrified, so broken, that they stopped making sound, and that silence being interpreted as purity? The practice continued for over 2 centuries, hidden in plain sight, protected by the dual authority of crown and cross. But like all secrets built on atrocity, it eventually cracked. In 1402, a servant in the Burgundian court named Marie Caron witnessed something she wasn't supposed to see. She'd been carrying linens through the east wing late at night when she heard singing, children's voices echoing from behind a locked door. She pressed her ear to the wood and heard prayers, not in Latin, but in French, small voices begging for their mothers. She heard an adult voice responding with soothing lies, telling them they were going home soon, that this was just a game. And then she heard the screams. Marie ran. She didn't report it to the palace authorities because she wasn't stupid. She went to the streets. She told the washerwomen, the bakers, the blacksmiths, anyone who would listen. Rumors spread like plague through the lower city. Whispers about children disappearing into the palace and never coming out. About bloodstains on royal linens. About the strange eastern wing that was always locked. The Duke of Burgundy tried to suppress the stories, but Marie had started something he couldn't control. Mothers began hiding their children. Orphanages started keeping records, counting heads, demanding explanations when wards vanished. In 1404, a mob formed outside the palace gates demanding answers. The Duke responded by having Marie arrested for slander and sedition. She was tortured for 3 days in the palace dungeons, and under duress, she recanted everything. Said she'd made it up. Sighed she'd been possessed by demons. They burned her at the stake in the central square as a warning to anyone else who might speak out. But her execution had the opposite effect. It confirmed what people already suspected. Why would the Duke go to such lengths to silence a simple servant unless she witnessed something unspeakable? Within a year, 3 more women came forward, all palace servants, all with similar stories. Children taken below, screams in the night, linen soaked in blood. The church was forced to respond. In 1407, Pope Gregory XII issued a private bull, not public, never publicly acknowledged, ordering an investigation into certain practices occurring in royal households that may be contrary to divine law. The investigation was led by a cardinal named Thomas Boniface, a man with a reputation for ruthless honesty. He toured the palaces of France, Burgundy, England, and Castile, and what he found horrified even him. The chambers were real. The drains were real. The copper bowls engraved with prayers were real. In the palace at Avignon, he found a ledger documenting over 200 children brought into the purification chamber between 1380 and 1406. 200 names, most of them listed simply as orphan or street foundling. In the English court, he found surgical tools, silver lancets with handles, carved into the shape of crosses, stored in velvet-lined boxes like holy relics. In Spain, he found something worse, a journal written by the court physician describing experiments. How long could a child remain conscious during bloodletting? Did prayer recited during the procedure affect the outcome? Were certain bloodlines more effective than others? The physician had treated it like science, like progress. Cardinal Boniface compiled his findings into a report that he presented directly to the Pope. The report no longer exists, destroyed in a fire in 1527 that many historians believe was deliberately set, but fragments survived in letters written by Boniface to other clergy. In one letter, he wrote, "I have seen the bowels of hell, and they are lined with silk and gold. I have heard demons pray in Latin. I have witnessed princes of the church bless the murder of innocents and call it salvation. If this is the will of God, and I no longer understand God." Pope Gregory read the report and made a decision. He couldn't expose the practice publicly. It would shatter faith in the monarchy, destabilize kingdoms, possibly trigger revolts across Europe. The alliance between throne and altar was too fragile. So he did something else. He issued secret orders to every royal court. The purification chambers were to be sealed immediately. The practice was to end. Any clergy involved were to be reassigned to distant monasteries. The children's graves were to be consecrated quietly. And everyone involved, from kings to servants, was to take a vow of silence under threat of excommunication. The chambers were bricked up, one by one, across Europe. The drains were filled, the copper bowls were melted down, the ledgers were burned, and the children were forgotten. For 600 years, they stayed forgotten, until 1987, when a construction crew renovating a castle in Bavaria broke through a false wall and found a room that shouldn't exist. A stone chamber with a sloped floor, a drain in the center, scratches on the walls, small handprints preserved in centuries-old grime. The archaeologists who examined the site found traces of blood in the mortar. DNA testing in 2005 confirmed it. Blood from at least 14 individuals, all children, all dead before the age of 10. The discovery sparked a quiet panic among historians. If this was real, what else had been hidden? They started searching other palaces, other castles. In France, they found 3 sealed chambers. In England, 2. In Spain, 4 more. Every single one matched the same architectural design, same sloped floor, same drain, same copper bowls, same scratches on the walls. The church refused to comment. The Vatican archives remain sealed. But the evidence speaks for itself. For over 200 years, the crowned heads of Europe participated in a practice so monstrous that even acknowledging it threatened to unravel the legitimacy of royal power itself. And the children, the hundreds, possibly thousands of children whose blood was spilled in the name of divine purification, were erased so completely that we only found them by accident, buried beneath the floors of the palaces they were murdered in. Lux in tenebris lucet. The light shines in the darkness. But sometimes the darkness wins for centuries before the light finds its way back. Those children left no names, no voices, no prayers carved into stone. Just traces of blood in the mortar and handprints on walls no one was ever supposed to see. And now you know. The question is, what do you do with that knowledge? Because history isn't just what happened. It's what we choose to remember. And some things, once remembered, can never be forgotten again.